Hi, welcome to Flow and Go. No props needed today, so just finding your way onto your mat. We're going to start lying down, so if you do want to have any kind of blanket or cushion underneath your head or under your knees, then feel free to grab it. And coming down into any position on your back that feels cozy, feels comfortable. So this will just be a really short, energizing practice to get you set up for your day wherever you are. So yeah, coming to start on your back. So maybe that you decide to keep the knees bent, or maybe you want to bring the feet out to the ground. Hands can be to the belly or to the sides. So just wherever you're feeling today, whatever feels good. And starting today's class by noticing your breath. So observing however it is at the moment without feeling it needs to change. Perhaps noticing if it's slow or fast, maybe deep or shallow. Seeing if the body can open up and relax. Notice if you're holding any tension anywhere that maybe could be let go. If you'd like to, taking a deep breath in through the nose and a deep sigh out through the mouth. Sending that deep sigh into any bits of the body that are feeling tight. And taking that breath a couple of times if that feels good. Maybe observing which parts of the body move as you breathe in and out. Is the breath mainly in the upper chest, or can it perhaps sink a little bit lower into the lower ribs, or maybe even into the belly? And maybe seeing if the inhale and the exhale can become a similar length. Taking a few more deep breaths into the body in whatever way feels good for you today. And then on your next inhale, drawing the right knee into the chest, interlacing the fingers around the right shin. Maybe noticing a lengthening through the back of the right leg. Seeing if the shoulders can relax down to the ground, stay open. And then on your next inhale, allowing that leg to lower down to the ground. Sorry, on your next exhale, inhale, drawing the left knee into the chest, interlacing around the shin on the left side. So drawing up the knee as far as feels good, opening up the body. And then on your next exhale, lowering down. Inhale, drawing both knees into the chest this time, wrapping forearms around the shins or interlacing the fingers. And then bringing the hands behind the thighs and taking a few rocks here, so feet come behind the head potentially. And then coming up to seat. Coming into any kind of seated position, so maybe cross legs, maybe kneeling. And drawing tall through the spine, bringing the hands onto the knees. Seeing if you can imagine maybe there's a piece of string coming out the top of the crown of your head and someone's pulling it upwards, so getting that feeling of sitting really tall in this position. And then on your next exhale, bringing the left hand to the right knee, opening up through the waist, through the chest to the right, bringing the right hand behind the body, coming into a seated twist, as deep as feels good. So maybe the gaze stays to the side, or maybe the gaze comes over the right shoulder if a deeper twist feels good for you. And on your next inhale, coming back to center. Exhale, coming to the other side. Right hand to left knee, left hand behind. Opening up through the body. So this doesn't have to be a big stretch, but just offering a little bit of openness to the spine, to the upper body. And inhale, coming back to center. Sitting up tall for one last breath, drawing up through the crown of the head. And then making your way onto your hands and knees. Hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Allowing the fingers to spread comfortably wide, gaze down in between the hands. Inhale, pressing through the hands, lifting the hips, chest draws through the arms, coming into cow. Exhale, pressing through the hands, tucking the chin, rounding the spine, coming into cat. So coming through this a few times at your own pace, sort of like a wave motion coming through the spine. So the head comes up last as you inhale, and then it comes down last as you exhale. On your next inhale, coming to center, tucking the toes under, pressing through the hands, lifting the hips, coming into downward facing dog. So option to take a generous bend in the knees to start with here, maybe focusing on lengthening the spine, gaze comes in between the legs to the back of the mat, allowing the head to be soft. Or maybe you can play around with gently pedaling the feet, or if your hamstrings are feeling really open, then feel free to maybe straighten the legs, whatever feels good. On an inhale, walking the feet forwards, coming to meet the hands at the top of the mat. Bringing the hands to the shins, drawing the spine long, gaze down, halfway lift. Exhale, release to forward fold. Inhale, bending the knees, rising up with the hands, coming into chair pose. So checking that the knees are behind the toes. You can still see your little toes when you look down. And then seeing if you can draw the lower ribs in. And don't worry too much about where the arms are. They don't need to be super high up. They can be a little bit further in front. You can open them into a Y shape. If your shoulders are tight, just going with whatever feels good. Inhale, rising up to stand, reaching up with the hands. Exhale, hands to prayer in front of the heart. Inhale, reaching up, and exhale, lowering down into chair pose once more. On your next exhale, straightening the legs, coming down to forward fold. Inhale, bring the hands to shins, gaze down, spine is long, halfway lift. And then exhale, hands by the feet, stepping back into plank. Reaching out, crown of the head to the heels. And then lowering the knees down for this first one, untucking the toes. Elbows bend towards the back of the mat, lowering down all the way. Pressing through the hands, rolling the shoulders down the spine. Peeling up into cobra. So you don't have to come very far for this first one. And exhale, lowering back down. Inhale, peeling up once more. So maybe a baby cobra or maybe full cobra. Exhale, lowering down. And then finding a way back to downward facing dog, tucking the toes under. Inhale, right foot comes forward in between the hands, using your hand to bring it there if that feels good. Keeping that front knee bent, bringing the back foot flat to the ground. Inhale, rising up into warrior one, hips facing the front of the mat. If that doesn't feel good, having your hips there, then you can absolutely come up on the back toes, coming into more of a high lunge, that's okay too. Exhale, spinning onto the back toes, hands by the feet, stepping back into plank. So option to bring the knees down as before, or to lower down with the knees lifted. Untucking the toes, pressing through the hands, coming into cobra. And then finding a way back into downward facing dog as you exhale. Inhale, bringing the left foot forward in between the hands, bringing the right foot down to the ground, bending into the front knee, warrior one on this side. Reaching up through the fingertips, drawing tall in this pose. Exhale, hands by the feet, spin onto the back toes, stepping back to plank. Coming through your version, knees can be down, knees lifted, or chaturanga if that's in your practice. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. So really grounding down through the knuckles of the fingers here, bringing the palms nice and wide. On your next inhale, stepping, walking or floating, coming to meet at the top of your mat, halfway lift. Exhale, release to forward fold. Inhale, bending the knees, reaching up, coming into chair pose. And then rising up to stand, hands come to prayer. So coming through one more time, whatever variations feel good for you. Taking a break at any time if you need to, coming into child's pose. Inhale, arms reach forward, lowering down, chair pose. Exhale, hands by the feet or dangling down, coming into forward fold. Inhale to halfway lift, spine draws long. Exhale, bringing the hands to the ground, stepping back into plank and coming through chaturanga or plank with the knees up or knees down. And then inhale, peeling up, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. On your next inhale, bringing the right foot forward in between the hands and allowing the back foot to come flat, bending into the front knee, checking the knees over the ankle, rising up, inhale, warrior one. Of course, option to take high lunge here as well. Whatever feels best on your hips, it's your body. Reaching up tall, bringing the hands together, bending the elbows, opening up through the chest. Inhale, reaching tall. Exhale, hands by the feet. Spin onto the back toes, coming back through your vinyasa. So whatever feels good. Inhaling, peeling up into cobra or upward dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. On your next inhale, left foot comes forward in between the hands, grounding down the back foot, bending into the front knee, rising up into warrior one. Bringing the palms together, bending the elbows, opening up through the chest. And maybe seeing here if you can tuck the lower ribs in while you still get that opening. So that brings the opening more into the chest, into the shoulders. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, hands by the feet. Spin onto the back toes, stepping back to plank. And if you're feeling a bit tired, definitely do bring the knees down or come through full chaturanga if you're feeling really energized today. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. So getting a feeling of the hands and the feet grounding down, and the hips are reaching high, rising up. So kind of this A-shaped frame with the hips reaching up towards the sky. On your next inhale, step, walk or float, coming to meet at the top of your mat in halfway lift, hands to shins. Exhale, release to forward fold. Inhale, bending the knees, rising up into chair pose. We'll hold this one for a few breaths. Option to stay here, or if you want to try hovering, maybe the left leg. Maybe that leg comes down. Maybe you hover the right leg. Bringing that leg down, one more breath here. Inhale, rising up. And exhale, taking the feet wide, coming down, bringing the hands into prayer, into Malasana squat. So in Malasana squat, the knees come wide, so the toes are slightly out here, the heels are slightly in. And as you bring the hands together, you'll notice that the elbows push the knees out, and seeing if you can draw the chest forward. If that doesn't feel good in this position, sometimes it can feel really uncomfortable in the hip flexors, then grab a cushion or anything that you might have handy. You can grab a block and you can have a little sit on that. That makes for a nice kind of restorative one. Or if you haven't got anything handy to sit on and it's not feeling good, then feel free to keep the toes lifted or bring the hands down to the ground. So there's no right or wrong here, it's taking a couple of breaths wherever feels good for you. And then wherever you are, bringing the hands behind the body and lowering down onto the ground. Maybe giving the legs a little shake. And then coming to seat in a wide leg position. So it doesn't have to be crazy wide, but just wherever feels good for your body. Again, it might feel good if you notice you're kind of rounding a little bit to pop something underneath the hips. So maybe a little cushion or something like that. If you don't have a cushion handy, what you can do is just roll up a little edge of your mat and you can sit on that instead. That lifts the hips a little bit. So you don't necessarily need to have a prop. And then from here, seeing if you can get that sense of drawing really, really tall like we did in that seated pose at the start. So imagine that there's that piece of string again drawing up through the crown of the head and seeing what it feels like to sit tall. If it's not good to have the hands here and you'd like to bring them behind, then that's absolutely okay. And then from here, option to stay in whatever seated variation you're in, maybe hands behind, hands on the legs or hands in front. Or if you'd like to bring this into a forward fold, if you're feeling really open today and you want to have that movement, then as you exhale, maybe starting to walk the hands forward. So being really mindful here, if this is the first bit of yoga you've done today and you're feeling quite tight, not to overstretch anything, especially if you've been doing a lot of sitting or a lot of running or, gardening, anything that kind of tightens up these areas. Be really mindful of that. And maybe just stay with sitting up. If you've got the space to come forward, you can come down onto elbows. You can bring the head down to the ground. If you have cushions handy, you can absolutely make this super cozy and rest your head on a bed of cushions. Taking a few breaths wherever feels good for you. On your next inhale, if you did take any of a bend forward, coming up to seat, and then bringing a hand underneath each knee, bringing the legs in, and maybe taking the hands behind the body, a little windscreen wiper of the legs side to side. And then scoot into about halfway up your mat and coming to lie down on your back. Keeping the knees bent for now, bringing the palms flat down to the mat either side of your body, and then seeing if you can bring the heels of the feet to just kind of at the point where they can be tickled by the fingertips. So that's the place that you want them. And you want to see if you can get your feet about hips width apart. And preferably in a straight line, although I appreciate that can be hard to figure out when you're lying down. So from here we'll come into bridge. So as you inhale, lifting up through the hips, pressing down through the feet, and then rolling onto the shoulders to bring the hands underneath the back, maybe interlacing the fingers. And then imagining that you're holding on to something really precious in between your knees. You can't grip it too hard or you'll break it. But equally, if you let the knees relax and go outwards, you'll drop it. So getting a feeling of holding onto something in between the knees, lifting up through the hips, and pressing down through the hands. Taking one more breath here. And then coming up onto the toes, allowing the arms to come out to the sides and lowering down slowly onto your back. And maybe from here, taking that little windscreen wiper, movement from side to side. And then back to center, option 2. Come through that one again. So inhale, lifting the hips, rolling onto the shoulders, interlacing the fingers behind the back. And then holding onto that imaginary precious object in between the knees. If wheel is in your practice and you're feeling open in your back today, if you've done other things that have opened up your spine, then feel free to take it. But otherwise, I'm going to suggest that you stay where you are, or option to play around like we did with chair, with lifting a leg up if you want to. So you can just have a go at lifting up one leg, maybe straight, maybe bent, getting a feeling for what happens in the body. Couple of breaths lifting one leg, and then maybe you want to see if it feels any different lifting the other leg. So seeing if you're lifting a leg, if you can still keep the hips really high. And then wherever you are, coming back to center. One last breath. And lowering back down. Taking that little windscreen wiper side to side. And then as the legs come over to the right, allowing them to stay there. Taking the left arm out to the side, gazing over the left arm. So coming into a little spinal twist. And then inhale, coming back to center, over to the left, right arm comes out to the side, gazing over the right arm. So breathing into the body in these really gentle twists. Maybe closing your eyes if that feels good. Inhale, coming back to center, head comes to center. And then drawing the knees to the chest. Inhale, drawing the forehead to the knees, squeezing up as tight as you can. And then exhale. Coming out to lie down. Legs come wide, arms come wide. Total relaxation, spreading out like pancake batter in a pan. Just allowing the body to completely melt down. Coming into the final pose, into your Shavasana. So whatever feels good here. Maybe you're totally comfortable just opening out on your mat. Allowing the ground to receive you, to support you. Feel free to get as cozy as you want here, any blankets or cushions. If the eyes are not already closed, maybe allowing them to close and perhaps rocking the head side to side. Finding space in the body, in the shoulders, in the jaw, in the forehead, in between the eyebrows, in the hips, in the hands and the feet. Maybe taking a deep breath in through the nose. And then exhaling, loud sigh out. Allowing your body to totally surrender, completely let go. Taking a few breaths in stillness and quietness. I encourage you to stay here for another 3 or 4 minutes if you have time, just drinking in this restorative pose, allowing the body to receive all the goodness that comes from the end of practice, which is just as important as the beginning. I hope this has allowed your body to feel a bit more open, a bit more ready for the day. Thank you so much for practicing with me, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.